Have you ever wondered why the Israeli-Palestinian conflict seems so unsolvable? This is a question that has puzzled many over the years. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict, a protracted clash between Israelis and Palestinians that began in the mid-20th century, is often categorized as one of the world's most intractable disputes. At its core, this conflict is a battle for land. But it's not just about the physical territory, it's about history, religion, and identity. It's a clash of narratives, each side with their own version of the story, each side believing in the righteousness of their cause. The complexity of this conflict runs deep, embedded in a rich tapestry of historical events, religious beliefs, and nationalistic aspirations. It's a tale of two peoples, both with legitimate claims to the same land, both with deep-rooted historical and cultural ties to the region. This conflict is not just a local issue, it has drawn in various international forces over the years, each with their own interests and agendas. The United Nations, the United States, the Soviet Union, and more recently, the European Union, have all played significant roles in shaping the conflict's trajectory. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is also a symbol of the broader Arab-Israeli conflict, a regional dispute involving several Arab nations and Israel. This adds another layer of complexity as it intertwines the Israeli-Palestinian issue with wider regional politics and alliances. In addition, the conflict is marked by a series of failed peace processes, each attempt bringing hope, but ultimately ending in disappointment. This has led to a deep-seated mistrust between the two sides, further complicating any attempts at resolution. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is a complex, multifaceted issue. It's a conflict that is as much about perception and identity as it is about land and borders. It's a conflict that has evolved over time, shaped by historical events, international involvement, and the changing political landscape. To understand this intricate issue, we need to delve into its history. The roots of the conflict stretch back to the late 19th and early 20th centuries. This was a period marked by the rise of national movements across the globe, and the Middle East was no exception. Two of these movements, Zionism and Arab nationalism, would come to play significant roles in the story of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Zionism emerged in Europe as a response to centuries of persecution and discrimination against Jews. Its proponents dreamed of a homeland for Jews, a sanctuary where they could live free from fear and oppression. This dream centered on the historic land of Israel, known at that time as Palestine, a region already populated by an Arab majority with their own dreams of self-determination. On the other hand, Arab nationalism was a movement that sought to unite all Arabs under one flag, free from foreign domination. This movement found a particular resonance in Palestine, where the local Arab population had been living under Ottoman rule for centuries, and was now witnessing an influx of Jewish immigrants. The Balfour Declaration, issued by the British government in 1917, further complicated the situation. It expressed Britain's support for the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine, while also noting that nothing should be done to prejudice the rights of the existing non-Jewish communities. This attempt to balance conflicting national aspirations proved to be a near impossible task. Following the end of World War I, Britain assumed control over Palestine under a League of Nations mandate. The British Mandate period, from 1920 to 1948, was marked by escalating tensions between the Jewish and Arab communities, both of whom felt betrayed by British policies. The British, unable to reconcile the competing national movements, eventually decided to withdraw from Palestine. With the end of British rule, the conflict took on a new dimension. This was the genesis of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, a complex and deeply rooted struggle that continues to this day. In 1948, the State of Israel was declared, sparking the First Arab-Israeli War. This moment in history marked a seismic shift in the Middle East. The United Nations, in a bid to end the decades-long dispute between Jews and Arabs in Palestine, proposed a partition plan. This plan aimed to divide the land into separate Jewish and Arab states, with Jerusalem under international administration. The Jewish leaders accepted it, but the Arab leaders rejected it. On May 14, 1948, the last British troops left Palestine, and the Jewish leaders declared the creation of the State of Israel. Almost immediately, neighboring Arab countries, Egypt, Syria, Jordan, and Iraq, declared war on the newly formed state. This war, which lasted for roughly a year, was marked by intense combat, leading to significant casualties on both sides. Fighting was fierce, and the world watched with bated breath as the new state of Israel battled for its existence. While the war raged, a mass exodus of Palestinians from their homes took place. This event, known as the Nakba, or catastrophe in Arabic, resulted in the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. Many fled to neighboring Arab countries, while others were displaced within the borders of the new state of Israel. When the dust finally settled in 1949, Israel had not only survived but had expanded its territory beyond the original UN partition plan. The war ended with a series of armistice agreements between Israel and its neighboring countries. Yet, no formal peace treaties were signed, and the Palestinian refugee issue remained unresolved. Territorial changes resulting from the war shaped the Middle East map as we know it today. The West Bank was annexed by Jordan, and the Gaza Strip came under Egyptian control. The State of Israel, now larger than initially proposed, was home to a Jewish majority and a significant Palestinian minority. This war set the stage for future conflicts and territorial disputes. It marked the beginning of a series of wars, each further complicating the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It underscored the deep-seated tensions and grievances that continue to fuel this ongoing dispute. Following the First War, several other conflicts and peace attempts took place. The Six-Day War in 1967 was a significant event, where Israel, in a preemptive strike, defeated the combined forces of Egypt, Jordan, and Syria. This victory resulted in Israel seizing control of territories including the West Bank, Gaza Strip, Sinai Peninsula, and the Golan Heights, drastically altering the geographical landscape of the conflict. The Yom Kippur War of 1973 saw Egypt and Syria launch a surprise attack on Israel on the holiest day of the Jewish calendar, Yom Kippur. Despite initial setbacks, Israel managed to repel the assault, but the war led to a shift in the regional balance of power and set the stage for diplomatic efforts. In the midst of these conflicts, there were also attempts at peace. The Camp David Accords of 1978, mediated by the United States, led to the Egypt-Israel peace treaty. This marked the first recognition of Israel by an Arab country, and in return, Israel withdrew from the Sinai Peninsula. The Oslo Accords in the 90s, brokered in secret, marked a significant attempt at resolving the conflict. It established a framework for future negotiations and led to mutual recognition between the Palestine Liberation Organization and Israel. However, the accords fell short of addressing key contentious issues such as settlements, refugees, and the status of Jerusalem. The turn of the century saw the Second Intifada, a period of intensified Israeli-Palestinian violence. This was followed by the Gaza disengagement in 2005, where Israel unilaterally withdrew from the Gaza Strip, but retained control over its airspace and coastlines. The conflict's narrative is deeply entrenched in the national identities of both Israelis and Palestinians. Each side holds firm to their historical narratives and national claims, complicating any attempts at resolution. Despite peace attempts, the conflict persisted, with both sides maintaining strong national narratives and claims. Today, the conflict affects every aspect of life in the region. It's a complex tapestry, woven with threads of political, social, and humanitarian issues that are deeply entrenched in the region's past and present. Let's take a moment to focus on the current state of the conflict. One of the most contentious issues is the Israeli settlements. These are communities of Israeli citizens living on lands that Israel occupied after the Six-Day War of 1967. The international community largely views these settlements as illegal, but their existence and continued growth remain a significant obstacle to peace. Then there's the question of borders. The Green Line, an armistice line drawn after the Arab-Israeli War of 1948, has been the de facto border for decades. But it's a line that neither side fully accepts. The Palestinians want to establish a state within the pre-1967 borders, while Israel has security concerns that complicate a full withdrawal. The status of Jerusalem is yet another sticking point. Both Israelis and Palestinians claim the city as their capital. Jerusalem's historical and religious significance to both sides makes it a particularly emotive issue. The conflict has also given rise to ongoing violence and political instability, with periods of relative calm often punctuated by outbreaks of hostilities. The humanitarian situation, particularly in the Gaza Strip, is dire. The blockade, conflicts, and political disputes have led to widespread poverty, unemployment, and a lack of basic services. In terms of future prospects, there's no easy solution on the horizon. The peace process has stalled, and trust between the two sides is at an all-time low. Yet dialogue remains the most viable path forward. International mediation, mutual recognition, and compromise will be crucial in navigating towards a peaceful resolution. As we can see, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is a complex issue, deeply rooted in history, national identities, and geopolitical interests.